Hello, today we are going to fall in love with the unit circle. We're going to get to use it a lot, and the more you get to use it, the better you get to know it. And just make sure that you label your quadrants, so 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. The other thing is, look, this nice unit circle tells you what's positive in quadrant 1, the sign code, everything. There's nothing that's negative. And so here's the sine and the cosecant are the only things that are positive. Well, the cosecant is just the reciprocal of the sine. So, of course, those are the only two things that are going to be positive. So this is a really nice unit circle because it gives you all of this information. The other thing that you need to post is that the x is the cosine of theta and the y is the sine of theta. Okay? So you keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to put this to the side because I'm going to be using it to do these problems right here. So using the unit circle notes. So remember that the xy on the unit circle is going to be your cosine. Since we're using angle A right here, I'm just going to put cosine of A and then sine of angle A. So that's your x and that's your y. And the cosine of angle A is your x value. So that means that the secant is 1 over the cosine of A, which is 1 over x. But just think of it as the reciprocal, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. Sine of angle A is y. So that means that the cosecant is 1 over the sine, because it's the reciprocal, which is 1 over y. But just think of it as the reciprocal. Same thing for the tangent. The tangent of A is the sine over the cosine, which is y over x. The cotangent is going to be x over y. It's the cosine over the sine. But remember, think of them as reciprocals. Okay, so then this is what we're going to do. Evaluate the following. Give an answer in most simplified radical form. I should have put form when necessary. Okay, so the sine of pi over 6. So then you go to pi over 6 right here on the unit circle. And remember that the sine is the y value, so that's what we're looking for. That equals 1/2. So we're going to go over here, and we're going to put 1/2. That's your answer right there. Now you have the cosine of negative 5 pi over 6. Well, this is a negative angle, so we got to make it positive. So we're going to do negative 5 pi over 6, and we're going to add 2 pi. But remember that on the calculator, you leave the pi out. So you're going to do negative 5 over 6 plus 2. So we're going to come over here to the calculator. We're going to clear my mess that I had right there. You're going to do the negative 5 over 6 plus 2. And then this is dirty. Okay, and then press enter, and you're going to get 7 pi over 6. So this equals 7 over 6, but then this over here is 7 pi over 6. Okay, so now this means that this is equal to the cosine of 7 pi over 6. So now we go look for 7 pi over 6 on the unit circle over here. Here's 7 pi over 6, and what we want to use is the cosine. So the cosine. So the cosine is the x value. So then that's your answer right there, negative square root 3 over 2. So that equals negative square root of 3 over 2. That's your answer right there. Okay, then you have the tangent of 3 pi over 2. Now the tangent of 3 pi over 2 is the same thing as the sine of 3 pi over 2 divided by the cosine of 3 pi over 2. Okay, so then you go over here, and the sine is the y value, so the sine is the y over the x. So it's the y value over the x value. So here's 3 pi over 2. So the sine is negative 1, and the cosine is 0. So this one is the sine, and that one's the cosine. So you're going to go right here and put -1 over 0 because that's the sine and that's the cosine. Now this is undefined because you cannot divide by 0. If you go on the calculator and try to divide -1 divided by 0, you're going to get an error. Okay, you can't do that. So the cosine is, the tangent is undefined at 3 pi over 2. Cosine of 2 pi. So then the cosine of 2 pi, you're going to go to 2 pi. The cosine is the x value. In this case, that's your x right there. That's going to be your answer at 1. So that's going to be 1. That's your answer. Okay, then we're going to go over here. Secant of pi over 3. So really, this is the reciprocal of cosine of pi over 3. So let's find the cosine of pi over 3 on the circle. So pi over 3 is right here. This is pi over 3. The cosine is 1 over 2. So 1 over 2 or a half is the cosine. And what's the reciprocal then? The reciprocal of 1 over 2, so this is going to be 2 over 1, which is 2. Okay, then we have the cotangent of 3 pi over 4. So remember, this is the reciprocal of the tangent of 3 pi over 4. Okay, so we got to go find what the tangent of 3 pi over 4 is. So 3 pi over 4 is in my second quadrant. And the tangent is the sine over the cosine, so it's this over this. So this is going to be the square root of 2 over 2 over negative square root of 2 over 2. Well, that just equals -1. Why? Because it's the same thing divided by the same thing. But this one's negative. So this is -1. Okay, so what's the reciprocal of -1? Well, put it over 1. Whoops. Put it over 1. So the reciprocal would be 1 over -1, which is still -1. Okay, go ahead and go to the next video to do the following problems.